Phillies 5 back all of a sudden. They're actually 5 back in the East. They're 5 back in the wild card. So which one do they have a better shot at? Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, is back. When I left, the Phillies were in first place. I return, they seemingly are out of the race all of a sudden. Bob, what the heck happened? Give me a overview of the last 10 days.
Oh, gee, you know that little rise that they had at the beginning of the month? Well, they just did the exact opposite while you were away, man. And congratulations. Saw your team won it all. That's quite an accomplishment. So that's good stuff. But
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
The Phillies did not have similar success. I mean, listen, they came into August 1st, 4.5 games out of the division lead. They get into first place. Now they're a half game worse than they were to start the month. So, it was rough. The offense, I mean, to simplify this, and I'm sure that all of your listeners know this, the offense was simply dreadful over a 12-game stretch. They've won 4 of their last 12 games, and the Braves right now are out of this world.
Yeah, the Braves have won, 9 out of 10 or something to that effect, and obviously just have got scorching hot. So scorching hot, though, should we believe, Bob, that after watching what we've seen, that this lead is too insurmountable?
Probably not. I mean, listen, the Braves are 16-3 during the month of August, and what they've been able to do is take advantage of some simply awful teams. I mean, they had a lot of success with the Nationals. They went and they beat up on the Marlins. They went and they beat up on the Baltimore Orioles, who are even worse than the Arizona Diamondbacks. And so, listen, the Phillies were not able to do much with Arizona, obviously, but the Braves have just played a number of just simply wretched teams here recently, and now their schedule is going to harden up here a little bit. They have the Yankees to start the week, then they have the Giants, and then they have to go out west and play the Dodgers, and then they hit the Coors Field, and they play a Rockies team that is one of the best teams in baseball at home this season. So the Phillies have an opportunity to cut down this deficit here a little bit, and as bad as this team has been and as frustrating as they've been, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they cut this lead down and get this thing interesting again here in the next 10 days or so.
Well, I guess the frustrating part is that you see Arizona, one of the worst teams, and you can't do anything against them. And obviously, you had a chance to make up some or keep pace or make it at least interesting with getting 2 out of 3 against a team like that. You get swept out, but you get back into the wild card race all of a sudden by beating the Padres 2 out of 3. So what's more attainable, the wild card or the East?
I still think that the East is this direct path. I don't really believe in the Atlanta Braves. And I mean, listen, I know that they made a number of moves before the trade deadline. They've done a lot to bolster that lineup. Jorge Soler has given them a boost. Adam Duvall has given them a boost. Jock Peterson. But it's still a flawed lineup, and that bullpen has been shaky. Their starting rotation doesn't really put a real scare into you. And you're only dealing with one team, really. I just think the Mets are kind of done at this point. Whereas if you flip over to the wild card, the Padres, I still think are a talented enough team that they can hang. And the Cincinnati Reds, who we saw in this last homestand, they can really swing it up and down the lineup. And they play in a very, very weak NL Central when you get past the Brewers. And I think that they have a shot to make a move here as well. So if the Phillies are going to get to the postseason, I think it's still the same path that we've been looking at for the last couple of months, which is to win the division.
All right. I want to get your thoughts on this decision with Alec Boehm that they made yesterday. They send him down. Hoskins is up. First, let's start with Boehm and what they should do with him when they send him down there. Should they keep playing him at third, or is now the time? Do they just write this year off at the major league level and start teaching him a new position?
I think for the short term, and Sam Fold had said this yesterday, they don't anticipate putting him out in left field. And I get why they won't do that. I mean, listen, if Alec Boehm comes back up in September, which he presumably will, I mean, the rosters don't expand the way that they used to, but they'll get a handful of spots back here as rosters expand over the final month. When Alec Boehm comes up, he's going to have to play third base when he's in the game. So he's not going to go out and be able to play left field in 2-3 weeks from now. So you might as well just let him go down, continue to work at third base in case you bring him back up and you decide to roll with him in your lineup again. This offseason, though, I think that they have to take a long, hard look at his future. I think it's very obvious that the concerns that existed when he was drafted still remain here now, which is that he probably cannot hang defensively at third base. So I think the long-term solution is to try to play him in left field, but I don't think that sending him down now and trying to get him to learn that on the fly is really a feasible option.
Right. So if you were to ask somebody off the record inside the organization, where do you see him? You think they would say left field because McCutchen's contract's up. That would be the spot?
Yeah, I mean, not that they're dead set on it, but I think that a lot of people within that organization at this point are starting to realize that, he probably does not have the skill set. And it's not a lack of effort. It's not that he doesn't try or that he doesn't work hard or anything like that. But I just think that naturally speaking, just the consistent ability, the soft hands element of things, just the feel for how to do it on a routine basis, it's just not there. And I think that that's something that probably would have clicked by now if it were to have been there.
Right, because
so I think that long term,
they moved him to first for a couple of times when Hoskins was out, and he was a butcher over there too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, hands are hands, and he doesn't have a ton of experience over at first base, and there's this assumption that you move a guy across the diamond and that all of a sudden he's going to turn into a really good infielder. Well, it doesn't always work like that. I mean, it's not that easy, especially to do it on the fly in the middle of we'll use this term loosely, but a pennant chase, so that's where they're at right now. And it's interesting that they sent him down because as much as I like Ronald Torreyes and as much as you applaud the defensive stability that he's brought to their mix, and he's had a number of key hits, I mean, listen, that's a tough bat to play every single day in your lineup right now.
Well, you got Galvis coming back. I would imagine that maybe they platoon those guys at this point.
You'd think so. I mean, in a perfect world, Alec Boehm would have stuck, though. I mean, despite the offensive struggles early in the season and despite the relative lack of power for a corner infielder, I mean, Alec Boehm hit over 300 from the beginning of June through the first week of August with an OPS over 800. So while he wasn't knocking the ball out over the fence on a routine basis or driving balls consistently into gaps, he was still a fairly productive offensive player for this team. Freddie Galvis comes back, and that's fantastic. But when you look at how much Didi Gregorius is struggling right now, you kind of almost wonder. It's like they're still a spot short. Like Freddie Galvis can fill in and play for Didi Gregorius at this point.
There's a lot here, man. Last night they play Herrera in left. They've been doing that, obviously. But McCutchen is back. Herrera goes 4 for 5 with 3 RBI. Do we anticipate seeing more of him at the top of the lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, it's like at this point you have to just kind of try to ride the hot hand. And, Travis Jankowski is not a guy that's going to give you sustained production. Odubel Herrera is not a guy that's going to give you sustained production. So I think that if you're Joe Girardi, you just have to say, hey, who's getting it done right now? Who's having the best swings right now? And just kind of take it day to day and piece it together. This team from the start of the season has lacked a true leadoff hitter, and that has not really changed. But, they just have to hope here that Odubel Herrera goes into one of his spells where, he puts together a 2-3 week stretch where he's out of his mind. And he's been really good this month during a stretch in which not many guys on this team have been.
Bob Wankel crossing broad, covers the Phillies, and obviously an important stretch coming up. They're off today. They will play the Tampa Bay Rays, and then they've got a really friendly schedule the rest of the way. I mean, really, if you look at their schedule the rest of the way after this Rays series here, man, they cannot have what happened against the Diamondbacks happen. But really, that Braves series, if memory serves, they got that Braves series coming up in Milwaukee. They might be the only 2 teams left on the schedule that have a winning mark, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And listen, I mean, I think you're going to have a sense here, and I don't want to state the obvious. And I think that sometimes we kind of get caught up in saying, like, this is the biggest stretch, or we're going to know where this team stands. If we would have said after the Mets series a couple of weeks ago, like, hey, yeah, they're really well positioned here. The schedule's going to break, and they're going to be able to really distance themselves from this division, and that didn't happen. But with the Phillies playing the Rays, who are a good team, who they have coming in this weekend. So they have the Nationals to start next week, and then they have the Diamondbacks coming in for 4, and I think that they obviously owe them some payback here this weekend.
The Diamondbacks are here Thursday, right, and then the Nationals Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, and then you're in Miami and Milwaukee. So you do have a nice little road trip there, but Washington, Miami, Milwaukee, and then you got Colorado, Chicago, the Mets, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. Ooh.
Yeah. And I mean, when you compare what the Phillies have over their next 10 games or so with what the Braves have over their next 10 games, like we talked about before, you're talking about a team that's got to deal with the Yankees, got to deal with the Giants, got to deal with the Dodgers. Phillies have an opportunity over the next week and a half here to cut this lead down to, maybe 2 or 3 games. Let's, assume that they're not going to get all 5 of them back here. But the Braves are going to cool down. They're a good team, but they're not a 16-3 team. They're not a team that's going to, win 30 of their final 38 games here down the stretch. So the Phillies have an opportunity to get back into it. It's probably not quite as bleak as things seem at the moment, but they've got to get going. They've really got to take care of business over these next 6 games here at home.
They sure do. And, one of the things, I guess, that has been a plus is the bullpen seemingly has found itself a little bit here. So if you can get the offense going, you might be able to get a good streak here.
Yeah, you really go back to the All-Star break. And since the All-Star break, there have not been really games that they've blown because of the bullpen in the final inning.
Correct.
Saturday night was about as bad of a loss, as tough as a loss as you're going to get. But that was more, Aaron Nola just gave up a 2-run homer at a bad time. And it was just sort of like a, tough break. And then you look at what happened in the 10th inning. I would put that more, on the defense than I would on a lack of execution from the bullpen per se. So, they have gotten some stability in the back end of that bullpen, and that's one thing that they can kind of hang their hat on. But offensively, I am simply stunned at how bad they've been, and you have to hope that Rhys Hoskins coming back kind of lengthens this lineup out a little bit and gets them going.
I'm going to say, getting him back, he hit a couple homers. That obviously helps them out. And obviously, as you wrote about the other day, a couple overexposed players, the Torreyases of the world, the Jankaskis of the world. You got to figure out a way, I guess, to pick your spots a little better. I'm very intrigued. You know when Galvis is due back?
Yeah, I mean, he's close. I would think that you're going to see him this week.
Okay.
Whether it's against the Rays or if it's going to be this weekend. But not only do you get Rhys Hoskins back, who provides that power element, that run production element in the middle of the order, but for as good and timely and clutch as Brad Miller has been for this team, I mean, he went through a roughly a 3-week stretch in which he hit about 140 for this team with an OPS in the 300s. So, like I said, it's just certain guys being overexposed. Brad Miller's a nice player. You can't run him out there for 15 straight starts. Ronald Torreyes is a nice player. I think you start to run into some problems when you run him out there for 15 straight starts, though.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, Phillies, Rays tomorrow night, little 2-gamer, and then they'll play Arizona for 4. You'll get Suarez and Wheeler in the Tampa Bay series. Moore, Nola, Gibson, Suarez against Arizona. There's your pitching, the way it kind of stacks up after this day off here for the Phils. At Bob Wankel CB, more at crossingbroad.com. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. Like I said, congrats, man. Good to see you back.
It was a wild ride, my friend. A wild ride. All right, I'll talk to you Friday.
All right, see you.
Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, Mondays and Fridays. We talk Phillies right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app.